Welcome to Zoe Stories. Caught in lipstick, now she's making me her doll. I never thought a simple moment of curiosity could turn my life upside down. My name is Alex, 23, working a mundane office job that paid the bills but did nothing to fulfill the parts of me that craved expression, creativity, and risk. On the surface, I lived a normal life. Emails, spreadsheets, awkward coffee breaks, but beneath the surface, a secret pulse ran through my veins. I loved the thrill of transformation, the delicate art of cross-dressing, and the way a simple change in appearance could alter my perception of the world and my own confidence. But I had always kept it private, a hidden indulgence behind closed doors.
Until that day.
Emma, my girlfriend of almost a year, was part of that private world. She knew some parts of me, but not the full extent. She was beautiful, confident, with an intensity that could ignite passion or fear depending on the moment. With her, my desire to explore this hidden side of myself felt safe sometimes. But safety is a fragile thing when secrets have a way of revealing themselves. Emma's influence over me was gentle yet firm, a mixture of affection, curiosity, and subtle dominance that I had grown addicted to. It all began one rainy afternoon. I was alone in our apartment, the gray clouds outside throwing a muted light across the living room. Emma had gone out for errands, leaving me with quiet time and temptation. On the coffee table sat a small box of her makeup, including a brand new lipstick she had just bought. Normally, I would admire it from afar, respect boundaries, and leave my secret indulgence for nights alone. But today, the urge was too strong. I picked up the lipstick, its smooth case cool against my fingers. The color was daring, a deep, sultry red, almost commanding attention. My pulse quickened. Something about it called to me, whispered promises of transformation and thrill. I hesitated, glancing around as if the walls themselves might judge me. But the apartment was empty, silent except for the occasional patter of rain against the window. With trembling hands, I uncapped the lipstick. I applied it carefully, slowly, watching as my lips transformed. The color was bold, electrifying, and the sensation was intoxicating. It wasn't just about makeup, it was about control, liberation, and a taste of a persona I had only allowed myself to explore in secret. For a brief moment, I felt like someone else entirely, a version of me that was daring, confident, and undeniably feminine. The thrill, however, was short-lived. Emma returned home much earlier than I expected. I heard the click of the lock and the soft padding of her footsteps before I could even attempt to hide the lipstick. Panic surged through me. I froze, caught red-handed, lips gleaming with the vibrant shade that betrayed my secret indulgence. "Alex." Emma's voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of curiosity and authority. I turned slowly, heart pounding, unable to form words. She studied me, her eyes tracing the line of the lipstick on my lips, the way my posture had subtly shifted, the faint shimmer of mascara I hadn't even realized I'd applied in my nervous rush. Instead of anger, her expression held something far more dangerous: interest. A smile curved her lips, slow and knowing, and a glimmer of something mischievous danced in her eyes. "So, this is what you've been hiding," she said, her voice gentle but with an edge that sent shivers down my spine. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Emma stepped closer, her movements deliberate, almost predatory. "You like this, don't you?" she asked softly, tilting her head. I nodded, unable to speak. Her smile widened, and a slow, deliberate laugh escaped her. "Well, I think we can work with this," she murmured. My stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and anticipation. That was the moment I realized everything had changed. The lipstick wasn't just a cosmetic, it was a symbol, a key that unlocked a new level of intrigue and suspense in my life. Emma's curiosity wasn't casual. It was an invitation, a challenge, and a promise. I was no longer just exploring this secret in private. Now, under her gaze, I was her creation, her subject, and perhaps her doll. Over the next hour, Emma guided me through subtle transformations, adjusting my posture, coaxing me into poses, and even selecting outfits that emphasized the feminine persona I had begun to explore. The thrill of cross-dressing, combined with the heightened tension of being caught, created a potent mix of exhilaration and fear. Every step, every glance in the mirror, every tiny adjustment of lipstick or mascara amplified the suspense. By the time the sun had dipped behind the clouds, turning the room into a soft twilight, I was fully immersed in this new identity. Emma's hands were gentle but insistent, guiding me as if sculpting a work of art. I had become a living, breathing version of the doll she envisioned, a mix of vulnerability, excitement, and nervous anticipation. And yet, beneath the thrill, a question lingered. How far would this go? The lipstick, the outfits, the guidance. It was intoxicating, but it was also a trap. Every step deeper into this transformation tightened the web of suspense, each glance from Emma a reminder of my vulnerability and her control. Could I maintain composure? Could I navigate the delicate balance between pleasure, fear, and obedience? Or would one misstep unravel everything? As I looked into the mirror, lips red and gleaming, eyes wide with both excitement and fear, I realized that my life had irrevocably shifted. What had begun as a private indulgence had transformed into a suspenseful journey, guided by Emma's deft hands, that threatened to change everything I thought I knew about myself. The lipstick had become a symbol not just of transformation, but of surrender, curiosity, and the thrill of the unknown. And in that moment, standing in the soft glow of the apartment, I understood that this was only the beginning. Emma's smile, knowing and teasing, promised that the story had just begun, and that the suspense, the drama, and the transformations ahead would test me in ways I had never imagined. The next morning, the apartment felt different. Even with Emma gone for work, the air seemed charged with unspoken tension. I moved carefully, each step deliberate, heels clicking lightly against the hardwood floor, an unfamiliar but intoxicating sound. The lipstick from yesterday still tingled on my lips, a constant reminder of the power and thrill that had been unleashed. My reflection in the hallway mirror startled me. I barely recognized the image staring back. The red of my lips made my pale skin appear softer, and the subtle shimmer of mascara emphasized my eyes in a way that felt almost unnatural, yet entirely mesmerizing. I tried to focus on mundane things, emails, breakfast, the usual morning routines, but my mind kept wandering to Emma's smile, her teasing gaze, and the soft guidance she had given me. Every glance at the mirror or passing reflection reminded me of the duality I now carried within me. There was Alex, the person everyone knew, and then there was this new persona, fragile yet thrilling, delicate yet commanding attention with every subtle movement. The phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Emma. "Don't forget your session tonight. Be ready." My heart skipped. Session. I muttered to myself, a mixture of fear and excitement washing over me. I knew she meant the guided transformations, the deliberate lessons in posture, style, and presence. What began as a playful curiosity yesterday had already evolved into a structured exploration of my feminine side under her watchful eye. I spent the morning in a haze, alternating between excitement and anxiety. My mind replayed the events of the previous evening, the soft guidance, the instructions on posture, the way Emma had coaxed me into her envisioned image. The thought of her observing me again, pushing me to embrace this new identity, was both thrilling and terrifying. I felt exposed even in my private space, and yet a part of me craved the next step. By late afternoon, I found myself standing before my bedroom mirror, taking stock of my features. My lips still bore the faint tint of yesterday's lipstick, and the light blush from Emma's careful hand had faded slightly, leaving only a soft glow. I practiced subtle movements, tilting my head just so, adjusting my shoulders, moving my hands gracefully. Each motion felt alien yet intoxicating. I realized that cross-dressing wasn't just about clothing or makeup. It was about embodying a different energy, a different version of myself that demanded attention and respect. The thrill of transformation was addictive. I tried on various outfits Emma had left for me, experimenting with skirts, blouses, and delicate accessories. Each combination altered my posture, my gait, my very sense of self. Heels added an extra layer of vulnerability, making every step deliberate, measured, and conscious of how I was perceived. The mirror reflected a doll-like version of me, beautiful yet fragile, confident yet tentative, a perfect representation of the tension that now defined my secret life. Even as I reveled in the transformation, anxiety gnawed at me. What if Emma noticed something I wasn't ready to show? What if the thrill I felt today turned into exposure or judgment tomorrow? The suspense was constant, an undercurrent to every glance in the mirror, every adjustment of lipstick, every shuffle of heels across the floor. I realized that part of the excitement wasn't just in the transformation, it was in the fear of being caught, the delicate dance between secrecy and revelation. When Emma returned that evening, the atmosphere changed instantly. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation, and her presence filled the room with a commanding energy. She didn't need to say much. Her gaze alone conveyed expectation, guidance, and subtle control. "Alex," she said softly, "let's see how far you've come." My heart raced. I felt like a student standing before a master, every movement under her scrutiny, every detail evaluated and refined. Emma guided me through the session with patience and precision. She adjusted my posture, corrected the tilt of my head, and even instructed subtle movements of my hands and fingers, teaching me how to inhabit this new persona fully. The suspense was electric. Each correction was a reminder of vulnerability, and each successful adjustment was a surge of confidence. I felt like clay being molded, a living doll shaped by Emma's careful hands. By the end of the session, I stood in front of the mirror, fully transformed. The outfit, the makeup, the heels, it all came together in a flawless, doll-like image. Emma stepped back, admiring her work, and I realized with a mix of pride and trepidation that I had crossed a threshold. The secret indulgence had evolved into an experience that challenged my identity, heightened my emotions, and left me craving more. But beneath the thrill, the suspense lingered. Each moment of transformation, each session with Emma, carried the weight of potential exposure. Every time the door clicked, every time a shadow fell across the room, my mind raced with questions. Was I ready for this level of vulnerability? Could I maintain control while giving up so much to this new identity? The thrill and fear intertwined, creating a potent, almost intoxicating mix that left me trembling yet exhilarated. And as I gazed at my reflection, lips red and shimmering, heels perfectly poised, I realized that the journey had only just begun. Emma's guidance, the thrill of transformation, and the suspense of secrecy had drawn me into a world I could never have imagined, a world where I was both Alex and something entirely new, something thrillingly fragile and intoxicating. The real challenge wasn't just becoming her doll, it was navigating the delicate balance between desire, fear, and the irresistible pull of this new persona. The following days blurred into a mix of anticipation and careful preparation. Emma had established a subtle routine, guiding me through each transformation session with a meticulous eye, always testing my limits. I quickly realized that cross-dressing under her direction was nothing like my private indulgences. This was structured, deliberate, and loaded with suspense at every step. The fear of misstepping, of failing her expectations, heightened every sensation. Even small mistakes, a crooked hem, smudged mascara, a hesitant step in heels, felt magnified, almost catastrophic in their significance. I spent hours in front of the mirror, practicing poses, gestures, and expressions Emma had taught me. I experimented with different outfits she had carefully chosen, soft pastel skirts, fitted blouses, and delicate accessories that emphasized my new, doll-like persona. Each outfit demanded a shift in posture and energy. Standing tall in heels was harder than I had imagined. Every click against the floor echoed in the quiet apartment, a subtle drumbeat that reminded me of both my vulnerability and the thrill of transformation. Emma noticed my hesitation. One evening, she circled me slowly, eyes scanning every detail. "You're tense," she said, her tone soft but probing. "You need to relax into it. Your body should move as if it's been trained this way for years. I nodded, trying to mimic confidence even as anxiety coiled in my stomach. It's just the fear, I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. Fear of messing up, of being exposed. Emma smiled knowingly, the expression both reassuring and mischievous. Good, she murmured. Fear keeps you sharp. It heightens the experience. Let it guide you, not crush you. That night, I tried a new outfit Emma had left for me. A flowing skirt, soft blouse, and a pair of heels slightly higher than I was accustomed to. My reflection was mesmerizing. Alex and the doll-like persona merged into something undeniably captivating. Yet, with every adjustment, I felt the weight of her expectations pressing down, a subtle but constant reminder that this was no longer just play. The suspense of her scrutiny made every motion deliberate, every smile rehearsed, every glance at the mirror a test. Emma returned home unexpectedly early that evening, her presence immediately filling the room with intensity. She didn't speak at first. She simply observed me as I practiced a delicate tilt of the head and a slow, graceful turn. My heart raced with anticipation and fear. Each movement was evaluated, each detail critiqued with gentle precision. The suspense was electric. I was being shaped, molded, and observed, and the slightest misstep could betray my inadequacy. Closer, she instructed, stepping behind me to adjust my posture subtly. Her hands lingered just enough to remind me of her control. Feel your body. Embrace the persona. This isn't just about looking the part. It's about becoming it. Her words resonated deep within me. The challenge was no longer just physical. It was emotional, psychological. I had to surrender myself, to inhabit this identity fully, and to trust her guidance completely. By the end of the session, I was exhausted but exhilarated. My body ached from standing, posing, and moving in ways I wasn't used to, but the reflection in the mirror was flawless. Every detail aligned perfectly. Posture, expression, clothing, makeup. I had become her doll, molded by her hands, and yet the thrill of vulnerability coursed through me. I realized the suspense wasn't just in the risk of being caught. It was in the surrender itself, the delicate balance of fear, trust, and exhilaration that left me trembling yet addicted. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I replayed the day's events in my mind. The thrill of transformation had merged with a new element, suspense. I wasn't just transforming physically, I was navigating a tightrope of emotions, constantly aware that Emma's observation could come at any moment. Every sound outside, every creak of the floorboards, every shadow passing across the walls heightened my awareness, amplifying the sense of danger and excitement. The duality of my existence weighed heavily on me. Alex, the man the world knew, was still there, lurking beneath the surface, yet the doll-like persona Emma had nurtured had begun to seep into my very core. I was learning to inhabit this new identity fully, and the line between performance and reality was blurring. The suspense of discovery, both by others and by myself, added a potent tension that made every moment electric. The next session brought a new challenge. Emma instructed me to select a complete outfit from her wardrobe and wear it without any guidance, relying solely on what I had learned. The anticipation of failure, of judgment, and of exposure made my pulse race. I carefully chose a soft, flowing dress, paired with heels that made my legs feel both vulnerable and powerful. Makeup was applied meticulously, though I second-guessed every brushstroke, every line, every shimmer. The suspense was almost unbearable. I was both exhilarated and terrified, knowing that Emma's evaluation could either reward or punish my efforts. When she returned, her eyes lit up with curiosity and amusement. "Let's see what you've done on your own," she said, a smile tugging at her lips. I froze for a moment, feeling every ounce of my anxiety as she circled me, her gaze sharp yet playful. She pointed out subtle adjustments, tiny tweaks that transformed my stance, expression, and aura. Each correction heightened the suspense, teaching me that perfection was a moving target, a delicate dance between confidence, vulnerability, and control. By the end of the evening, I understood that this was more than transformation. It was a journey into the unknown. The thrill of cross-dressing, guided by Emma's meticulous attention and subtle dominance, had become a suspenseful, emotional adventure. I was caught in the thrill of becoming her doll, addicted to the mix of fear, excitement, and surrender. Each session, each glance in the mirror, each adjustment of lipstick or heels drew me deeper into a world where identity, desire, and suspense intertwined in ways I had never imagined. As the days progressed, Emma's sessions became more intricate, more demanding, and far more thrilling. Each time she returned home, there was a subtle tension in the air, a charge that made my heart race before a single word was spoken. I had learned to anticipate her expectations, to prepare my movements and expressions, but the suspense of the unknown kept me on edge. No matter how much I practiced, I never knew what new challenge she might introduce. One evening, she instructed me to try heels I had never worn before, taller, thinner, and far less forgiving. My legs shook as I adjusted, the unfamiliar height forcing me to concentrate on every step. The click of the heels echoed through the apartment, a staccato reminder of my vulnerability. Emma watched quietly, arms crossed, eyes sharp with scrutiny. I felt exposed in a way I never had before, my body trembling from both the physical strain and the psychological pressure of being evaluated. "Balance, Alex," she said softly but with authority. "Feel the heels, not just wear them. They're part of the transformation. Every step should be deliberate." I nodded, swallowing hard. My pulse was racing, my muscles tight with tension. With every careful movement, the thrill of the transformation mingled with fear. I was learning not only to inhabit this feminine persona, but to master it under observation, and the suspense of potential failure made every motion sharper, more intense. After mastering the steps across the living room, Emma introduced another layer: facial expressions and gestures. "Your lips, your eyes, your hands," she instructed, circling me like a predator studying her prey. "Each detail communicates who you are now." The doll isn't just about appearance, it's about presence, emotion, and subtlety. I tried to mimic her instructions, tilting my head, fluttering my eyelashes, and positioning my fingers delicately. The mirror reflected a version of me that was both Alex and something entirely new, a living, breathing doll shaped by Emma's precise guidance. The suspense intensified when she introduced a time challenge. She instructed me to walk from the bedroom to the kitchen and back, heels clicking, posture perfect, movements flowing naturally, while she observed silently. My stomach twisted as I counted each step internally, aware that a single misstep would draw her criticism. The apartment, usually safe and familiar, had transformed into a stage, every corner, every reflection a potential threat. My heartbeat was deafening in my ears, but the thrill of performing perfectly, of embodying this new persona flawlessly, was irresistible. By the end of the session, I was exhausted yet exhilarated. My legs ached from the heels, my arms were tense from maintaining posture, and my face felt foreign from the constant attention to expressions. But the reflection in the mirror was stunning, a doll-like version of me, poised, delicate, and entirely captivating. Emma's gaze lingered, approving yet teasing, and I realized with a shiver that I was addicted to this dance of suspense, transformation, and evaluation. The psychological tension didn't end when Emma left for the night. Alone, I practiced movements, poses, and expressions, each adjustment sharpening the thrill and fear. The mirror became both ally and adversary, reflecting a persona I had once only dreamed of, but now inhabited fully. The suspense of discovery, by Emma, by others, or even by myself, was a constant undercurrent, making each glance, each movement, and each breath electric with anticipation. A week later, Emma raised the stakes. She instructed me to prepare an outfit and fully transform without any guidance, leaving me to rely on what I had learned. The suspense was nearly unbearable. I selected a delicate lace dress, a pair of heels higher than any I had worn before, and applied makeup meticulously, my hands trembling with nervous excitement. Every motion, Every choice was amplified by the fear of failing her expectations. When Emma returned, she observed silently, eyes scanning every detail. Her expression was unreadable, and my heart pounded with anxiety. Each adjustment she suggested, a tilt of the head, a shift in the hips, a change in hand position, was a test, a challenge that heightened the suspense. The thrill of perfecting the transformation under pressure, combined with the fear of misstep, created a tension that was almost unbearable. By the end of the evening, I had passed her scrutiny, at least for the moment. The reflection in the mirror showed a perfect doll-like figure, my posture elegant, my expression poised, my confidence trembling yet tangible. The mixture of fear, excitement, and suspense had become intoxicating, leaving me both exhilarated and exhausted. I realized that this journey wasn't just about cross-dressing. It was about surrender, trust, and navigating a world where every detail, every movement, and every glance carried immense weight. Alone, I traced the lines of my reflection, fingers brushing against my lips, feeling the shimmer of lipstick and the subtle curve of my blush. I was addicted to the thrill, the suspense, the delicate balance between vulnerability and mastery. Each session, each challenge, each moment of scrutiny drew me deeper into Emma's world, a world where I was her creation, her doll, and yet fully alive with emotion, anticipation, and fear. And so, the suspense continued to build, wrapping around me like a velvet rope. Each step, each pose, each glance was a reminder that I was no longer just Alex. I was something more, something delicate, thrilling, and entirely under Emma's influence. The journey had just begun, and the stakes were higher than ever. The following morning, a sense of anticipation hung over me like a cloud I couldn't escape. Emma had left a note on the counter. "Today, we push limits. Be ready." My heart raced as I read it, simultaneously thrilled and terrified. The vague warning suggested a challenge beyond anything we had attempted so far. I spent the morning rehearsing in front of the mirror, adjusting my posture, perfecting my walk in heels, and refining my expressions. Each movement was deliberate, each glance calculated. I was on edge, knowing that today's session would test not only my skills but also my ability to handle suspense. When Emma arrived, she carried a small box, which she placed carefully on the coffee table. "Open it," she instructed, her voice calm but firm. Inside were new items, an unfamiliar pair of heels, a delicate dress, and a set of bold makeup Emma had never let me use before. My pulse quickened. The heels were high and narrow, far more challenging than any I had worn. The dress was delicate and form-fitting, and the makeup demanded precision I feared I might not possess. Each item felt like a test, and the suspense of whether I could meet her expectations weighed heavily on me. Emma watched silently as I began the transformation. My hands shook slightly as I applied the makeup, trying to match the skill she had shown me. The heels forced me to focus on balance, each step a delicate negotiation between confidence and fear. I could feel her gaze, sharp and evaluative, and it made every movement feel magnified, like the entire world was observing me. The thrill of transformation was now inseparable from the suspense of judgment, a combination that left me exhilarated yet tense. Once I was fully dressed and made up, Emma circled me, scrutinizing every detail. "Your posture is improving," she remarked, but her tone hinted at more. "But can you hold it under pressure?" I swallowed hard. I knew what she meant. This wasn't just about looking perfect. It was about performing flawlessly under observation, maintaining the persona even when mistakes, fear, or fatigue threatened to break the illusion. Emma guided me through a series of exercises designed to push my limits. I had to walk, pose, and express emotions while keeping the heels steady, my movements fluid, and my face composed. Each correction heightened the suspense, a slight tilt of the hips, a shift of the hands, or the smallest misalignment could earn a sharp glance or gentle but pointed criticism. I felt my heart pound in my chest with every step, my entire being focused on maintaining the delicate balance between success and failure. The suspense was compounded by unexpected obstacles. Emma introduced mirrors in unusual positions, forcing me to navigate my movements while monitoring multiple reflections. My reflection multiplied infinitely, each image scrutinizing me, each angle revealing imperfections I hadn't noticed. My mind raced, trying to keep up with the simultaneous demands of posture, expression, balance, and poise. The thrill of mastery intertwined with the fear of failing spectacularly. It was intoxicating. By mid-session, exhaustion began to set in. My legs ached from the heels, my arms from constant adjustments, and my mind from intense concentration. Yet the thrill persisted. Every glance in the mirror reminded me of the transformation, the delicate balance of Alex, and the doll-like persona Emma had cultivated. I realized that this suspense, this constant push of limits, had become addictive. The risk of imperfection amplified every sensation, every emotion, every heartbeat. Emma decided to increase the challenge further. She instructed me to interact with objects in the apartment, pouring water into a glass, arranging flowers, picking up small items, while maintaining perfect posture and expression. Each movement required precision, each action a test of composure. The suspense of potentially failing while performing mundane tasks was almost unbearable, yet the thrill of succeeding under pressure made each success a small victory, reinforcing my dependence on the excitement and fear interwoven in these sessions. By the end of the evening, I stood before the mirror, exhausted but exhilarated. The reflection was flawless, a doll-like figure poised, composed, and breathtakingly fragile. Yet beneath the surface, the suspense lingered. Every step, every glance, every movement had been charged with tension, fear, and excitement. I had navigated challenges I never thought possible, yet I knew this was only a fraction of what Emma had planned. As Emma stepped back, her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. "You're ready for more," she said softly, a subtle challenge in her tone. My heart raced. I understood that this was no longer just transformation. It was a continuous test, a series of escalating suspenseful moments designed to push me to my limits. The thrill of cross-dressing, of embodying the doll-like persona, had become inseparable from the suspense of judgment, evaluation, and exposure. Alone that night, I replayed the session in my mind. The thrill, the fear, the tension, it all mingled into a potent cocktail of emotion that left me trembling yet craving more. I traced the contours of my reflection, fingers brushing against the smooth fabric of the dress, the delicate shimmer of makeup, the tips of my toes and heels. Each detail reminded me that this journey was far from over. Emma's challenges had only just begun, and the suspense, the thrill, and the fear of being caught had become an inseparable part of my transformation. The next day, Emma announced a final test before we moved to the next phase of transformation. "Today," she said, her voice calm but edged with authority, "you'll perform everything you've learned perfectly, without hesitation. This is the ultimate test." My stomach twisted with nerves. The anticipation alone made every nerve in my body ache. Every fiber of me wanted to succeed, yet the pressure of expectation sent a thrill of fear racing through my veins. I dressed carefully, selecting the outfit Emma had left for me, a flowing, pastel dress that emphasized every curve and paired perfectly with the tallest heels I had worn so far. The makeup was bold, highlighting my eyes and lips in a way that transformed my face completely. The dress, the heels, the makeup, they all combined to create a doll-like persona that was both fragile and captivating. I could barely recognize myself in the mirror. The reflection stared back, poised and delicate, yet trembling with the suspense of evaluation. Emma observed silently as I practiced my walk and gestures. The pressure was nearly unbearable. Every step, every tilt of the head, every flutter of my eyelashes felt magnified, as if the world were watching. She introduced a series of unexpected challenges, walking while balancing a tray of glasses, moving quickly from one room to another, maintaining eye contact with the mirror in a new, disorienting angle. Each task was designed to push me to the edge of my abilities, to heighten both suspense and fear of failure. My legs ached, my hands trembled, and my mind raced as I performed the series of exercises. One wrong step, one slip, one faltering expression could undo everything. The suspense was electric, every sound in the apartment magnified, the clack of my heels, the faint creak of floorboards, even the sound of my own breathing. Each noise felt like a test, a signal that I could fail at any moment. Emma occasionally corrected me, her fingers adjusting my posture, my hands, even the slightest tilt of my head. Her guidance was precise, gentle, yet carried a weight that made me hyper-aware of my every move. The thrill of transformation was now inseparable from the suspense of evaluation. I was addicted to both, the fear of imperfection and the exhilaration of success. Every correction heightened my sensitivity, making the performance even more intense. After several grueling hours, Emma announced the final phase. "Now," she said, "you'll embody the doll completely, in a real scenario. I'll watch quietly, but you must maintain the persona as if you're alone." My heart pounded. This was the culmination of every session, every lesson, every practice. The suspense of performing without immediate feedback, of navigating an unknown challenge while fully transformed, sent adrenaline surging through me. I moved through the apartment, balancing trays, adjusting posture, practicing expressions, and responding to imaginary prompts, as if I were on a stage. The suspense was suffocating yet intoxicating. Each moment was a test of concentration, composure, and confidence. Every small detail, hand gestures, eye contact, head tilt, was critical. The reflection in the mirror multiplied, showing me endlessly, each image a reminder of perfection or failure. Emma observed quietly from a distance, her eyes sharp but approving. I could feel the weight of her gaze even when she wasn't near. The suspense of her evaluation, combined with the physical strain and mental focus, created a tension so intense it was almost overwhelming. Yet within that pressure, I discovered a strange exhilaration, a rush of adrenaline and pride that made me feel alive in a way I had never experienced. By the evening, I had mastered every challenge Emma presented. My legs ached from hours in heels, my arms were sore from maintaining precise gestures, and my face was fatigued from controlled expressions. Yet the reflection in the mirror was flawless. I was fully the doll she had envisioned, delicate, poised, and captivating. The suspense of the tests, the fear of failure, and the exhilaration of transformation had culminated in this perfect embodiment of her creation. As Emma stepped closer, a subtle smile played on her lips. "You've done well," she said softly. "You've learned to navigate fear, suspense, and perfection. But remember, this is just the beginning." My pulse raced at the implication. The thrill of transformation, the suspense of expectation, and the addiction to fear and exhilaration were now inseparable from my identity. I had become her doll, fully and irrevocably, and yet the journey was far from over. Alone that night, I traced my reflection one final time for the day, fingers brushing against the delicate fabric of the dress and the smooth shine of lipstick. Every detail reminded me of the journey, of fear, suspense, exhilaration, and surrender. I realized that this transformation was more than physical. It was psychological, emotional, and addictive. The suspense that had driven every movement, every glance, and every adjustment had taught me resilience, control, and the intoxicating thrill of being watched, evaluated, and perfected. And so, the build-up concluded, leaving me on the precipice of something even more intense, a climax where the ultimate test of secrecy, exposure, and emotional surrender awaited. The suspense, the thrill, and the transformation had reached their peak, ready to explode into the next chapter of my journey as Emma's doll. The morning after the final build-up session, a strange tension lingered in the apartment. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. Emma had left me with a simple instruction. "Today, you're alone, but every move counts. The world may watch, even if unseen." The ambiguity made my heart pound. I wasn't sure whether she meant surveillance, observation from afar, or a test of my own focus. The suspense gnawed at me as I prepared for the day. I dressed carefully, choosing a soft pink dress that clung delicately to my figure, paired with the tallest heels I had worn yet. The transformation had become second nature, yet the stakes today felt different. Higher. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, flawless and doll-like, but my hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my hair and lipstick. The exhilaration and fear combined into a potent cocktail, making my pulse hammer in my chest. Emma had left the apartment keys out, implying freedom, but also a test. Every sound, each creak of the floor, the rustle of the blinds, even distant traffic, seemed amplified. I moved cautiously, my posture perfect, hands poised delicately, balancing both elegance and tension. The thrill of performing flawlessly while alone was addictive, yet the suspense of being discovered, judged, or failing made every step a test of concentration. Hours passed in this delicate dance. I rehearsed walks, poses, gestures, even practicing expressions in the mirror as though I were conversing with an invisible audience. The suspense of being observed, whether real or imagined, created a pressure I had never felt before. Every step in heels, every tilt of my head, every flicker of emotion in my eyes had to be precise. I realized that the transformation was no longer just physical. It had become a psychological game of control, performance, and anticipation. Midway through the morning, an unexpected sound froze me in place. A knock at the door. My heart leapt. Emma hadn't warned me about visitors. I froze, balancing precariously on my heels, fingers hovering delicately in the air. The suspense of who it could be, and whether my transformation would be discovered, tightened like a vice around my chest. Slowly, I approached the door, my steps deliberate, each click of my heels amplified in the silence. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a delivery man holding a package. Relief flooded through me, but the suspense wasn't over. I had to maintain composure while receiving the delivery, ensuring that every movement reflected the persona Emma had cultivated. My hands trembled slightly as I signed for the package, balancing elegance and caution. The thrill of being exposed, even momentarily, intensified the experience. After the delivery man left, I carried the package carefully into the living room, balancing it in front of the mirror. My reflection multiplied infinitely, showing every angle of my posture, every expression, every detail of my doll-like appearance. The suspense of maintaining perfection while handling unexpected challenges heightened my awareness. I realized that the thrill of cross-dressing had become inseparable from the tension of unpredictability, the fear of exposure, the fear of imperfection, and the exhilaration of overcoming these obstacles. Emma's voice echoed in my memory. Every move counts, every glance matters. I replayed her words as I opened the package, revealing a delicate wig and new accessories, items meant to elevate my transformation further. The suspense of using them correctly, under the pressure of imagined scrutiny, made my hands shake. I carefully fitted the wig, adjusted the earrings, and touched up my makeup, each movement deliberate, precise, and loaded with tension. By afternoon, the suspense had transformed into a near-constant hum in my chest. I paced the apartment, practicing walks and gestures, feeling both exhilarated and vulnerable. Every step in heels, every tilt of the head, every small adjustment reminded me that I was fully under Emma's influence, a creation of her design, performing flawlessly, yet teetering on the edge of exposure. The thrill of mastery and the fear of imperfection combined into a potent mix, making me feel alive and fragile all at once. Then, the climax of the suspense arrived. The doorbell rang again. This time, no warning, no instructions. My heart nearly stopped.
Who could it be?
Emma? A neighbor? The intensity of the moment forced me to confront my deepest fear, being caught. I stood frozen in front of the mirror, my reflection a perfect doll, my heart racing uncontrollably. Every instinct screamed to hide, to change back, yet the thrill of maintaining composure and perfection was irresistible. I took a deep breath, adjusted my posture, and walked toward the door, heels clicking sharply with each step. The suspense was unbearable, every second stretching endlessly. I opened the door slowly, revealing a familiar face, my best friend, someone I hadn't expected to see today. Their eyes widened slightly, and I froze, aware that my secret, my transformation, might be exposed in an instant. The reflection in the hallway mirror captured the moment perfectly, the doll-like persona, poised and delicate, standing frozen in suspense. The sight of my best friend standing at the doorway froze me in place. My reflection from the nearby mirror reflected a perfect doll, poised, fragile, and terrified all at once. My heart raced violently. Every instinct screamed to flee, to retreat, to hide my transformation, yet my training, my obsession with perfection, anchored me. The suspense was suffocating. I could feel the sweat forming at my temples, my hands trembling ever so slightly as I held my posture. Hey, my friend said, voice cautious but curious. They tilted their head, squinting slightly. Are you okay? The hesitation in their tone made me realize just how precarious the situation was. One wrong word, one slip of composure, and the entire secret I had been cultivating with Emma could be exposed. I had to act natural, yet every fiber of me was alert, every movement calculated. I took a deep breath and smiled, soft and delicate, forcing the calm Emma had drilled into me. I'm fine, I whispered, my voice carrying the perfect tone, slightly higher, gentle, melodic. The suspense of their next reaction was unbearable. Their gaze flicked to the heels, then the dress, then back to my face. My chest tightened. Each second stretched infinitely, each pause a test of my ability to maintain composure under pressure. My friend's eyebrows rose slightly, curiosity and surprise battling in their expression. That's quite the look, they said slowly. I could feel the tension building inside me, the fear that my secret might slip out. I had to keep smiling, keep my posture flawless, and maintain the illusion of casual grace. Every muscle in my body was engaged, balancing excitement, fear, and suspense. I invited them in, guiding them past the mirrors and delicate arrangements in the living room. The closer they came, the more aware I became of my reflection in every angle. The suspense was magnified tenfold. The thought of being discovered, the fear of judgment, and the exhilaration of performing perfectly all collided in my chest. I felt both exposed and empowered, fragile yet intoxicatingly strong. Emma's voice echoed in my memory. Every move counts. Your poise must never falter. I repeated it in my mind like a mantra, steadying myself. Each word from my friend, each glance, was a new challenge. I had to maintain the doll persona flawlessly, despite the stress of unanticipated company. The suspense tightened like a coil in my chest, every second stretching as if the universe itself were watching. I offered them a seat, moving with the grace of a practiced performer. Each step in heels was deliberate, each motion perfect. They watched curiously, occasionally glancing at the mirror and the reflection of my delicate form. The thrill of being observed, of teetering on the brink of exposure, was almost addictive. I felt alive in a way that only heightened suspense could bring, every heartbeat echoing in my ears, every nerve on edge. Then came the first close call. My friend reached for a glass, brushing the edge of the tray I was holding. It wobbled, tipping slightly. My hands shot out instinctively, steadying the tray without spilling a drop. The suspense and adrenaline coursing through me were electrifying. I had managed to maintain composure, but the reminder of how quickly things could go wrong made my pulse hammer. My reflection in the mirror captured the split-second tension, the delicate balance of fear and control. My friend leaned back, still oblivious to the full story, but their curiosity kept the suspense alive. They commented on my heels, the dress, the makeup, all small observations, yet each carried the potential to unravel the persona I had perfected. I smiled and answered carefully, each word measured, each gesture elegant. The pressure was intoxicating. I realized that this suspense, The constant push to maintain perfection under observation had become addictive. Hours passed in a haze of careful movement, conversation, and observation. Every step, every smile, every tilt of the head was a balancing act, a dance of suspense. My friend's presence was both a test and a thrill, their curiosity fueling the tension that coursed through me. Each minor slip, each hesitation, could have exposed the truth, yet I maintained the doll-like persona flawlessly, riding the exhilarating wave of suspense. By late afternoon, exhaustion set in, yet the thrill remained. My reflection in the mirror was impeccable, yet the suspense lingered. What if Emma walked in now? What if my friend started asking questions? Or if some small mistake betrayed my secret? The fear of exposure, the adrenaline, and the thrill of flawless performance merged into a potent emotional cocktail. I was fully immersed, completely transformed, yet the suspense was unrelenting, teasing, intoxicating. Finally, my friend left, leaving me alone in the apartment once more. My legs ached from hours in heels, my hands trembled from careful gestures, and my mind was a whirl of fear, exhilaration, and suspense. I walked to the mirror, tracing my reflection, feeling both triumphant and vulnerable. I had survived the unexpected challenge, maintained the doll persona flawlessly, and felt the intoxicating mixture of fear and exhilaration that Emma had engineered. Yet even in solitude, the suspense didn't fade. Every shadow, every creak, every imagined observation reminded me that the journey wasn't over. The climax was only beginning. I was on the precipice of the ultimate test, one that would push my composure, transformation, and courage to the absolute limit. The apartment felt eerily quiet after my friend's departure. Every sound, each creak of the floorboards, the whisper of the curtains in the breeze, the soft hum of the refrigerator, seemed amplified in the silence. I moved cautiously, balancing on the heels that had become both a symbol of transformation and a test of endurance. The thrill of the day's earlier challenges still pulsed through me, but a new tension lingered. What if Emma returned unexpectedly? What if she observed me in this vulnerable, perfectly doll-like state? I practiced my posture again, slowly walking across the room, each step deliberate. My reflection multiplied infinitely in the mirrors, showing me countless angles, each one revealing the delicate perfection Emma demanded. The suspense of maintaining flawless appearance and composure without an audience was now intertwined with the fear of sudden exposure. Every heartbeat echoed in my chest, a constant reminder of the stakes. Then, unexpectedly, my phone buzzed. A message from Emma appeared. "Look in the mirror." My stomach twisted with anticipation. I approached the mirror, each step measured and cautious. The suspense was palpable, almost suffocating. My reflection stared back, flawless yet tense, and I realized that Emma's test was far from over. I could feel the weight of her gaze, though she wasn't physically present. Every detail, my posture, my expression, the balance in my heels, was under scrutiny. As I studied my reflection, a sudden movement in the corner of the room caught my eye. A subtle shadow shifted near the window. My heart raced. Was it Emma? Another observer? Or just a trick of the light? The suspense tightened its grip, making my limbs tense and my breath quicken. I froze, unsure whether to move or hold my position, knowing that even a small misstep could betray my carefully cultivated doll persona. The shadow moved again, closer this time. My pulse thundered in my ears. I realized it was only the curtains swaying in the breeze, yet the adrenaline surged through me, a reminder of how sensitive and vigilant I had become. The suspense was addictive. Every moment carried the potential for revelation, every shadow a test of my composure. I adjusted my posture, lifted my chin, and continued walking gracefully across the room, heels clicking softly yet firmly on the floor. Then came the symbolic moment that would define this part of the climax. A small vase on the edge of a table wobbled as I passed by. My reflexes kicked in instinctively, and I caught it just before it fell. The suspense of the near disaster electrified my nerves. My reflection in the mirror captured the tension perfectly, hands steady yet trembling, posture perfect, eyes wide with controlled fear. The symbolic act of catching the vase became a metaphor for my journey, maintaining balance, perfection, and composure under immense pressure. Hours passed in this heightened state of suspense. I moved through the apartment, performing every gesture, every tilt of the head, every step in heels with calculated precision. The mirrors reflected my doll-like form endlessly, each angle reinforcing the illusion of perfection. I felt both empowered and vulnerable, exhilarated and terrified. The psychological tension of transformation under potential observation had reached its peak. Midway through the afternoon, another challenge arose. A sudden knock at the door jolted me. My heart leapt. I froze, balancing on my heels, fingers poised delicately in the air. The suspense was almost unbearable. Each second stretched, filled with the fear of exposure and the exhilaration of performing flawlessly. Slowly, deliberately, I approached the door. Peeking through the peephole, I saw Emma standing there, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. The suspense peaked. I had survived the tests, mastered my movements, maintained perfection under observation, yet now the ultimate challenge loomed. Facing Emma in this fully transformed state, knowing she held the power to reveal or reinforce my doll-like identity. I opened the door, maintaining flawless posture, my heart hammering in my chest. Emma's gaze swept over me, assessing, approving, yet carrying the unspoken tension of control. The suspense of the moment was electrifying. I realized that every step, every gesture, every detail of my transformation had led to this confrontation. The thrill of performance, the fear of imperfection, and the tension of exposure coalesced into an intoxicating crescendo. "Beautiful," she whispered, voice soft but commanding. The words sent shivers down my spine, yet the suspense didn't dissipate. I was fully exposed, fully transformed, yet completely under her influence. The emotional and psychological stakes had never been higher. Every instinct, every reflex, every learned gesture would be tested in the moments ahead. And so, the suspense continued, leading inexorably toward the final moments of the climax. Every detail mattered, every shadow, every reflection, every heartbeat. The transformation was complete, yet the tension, fear, and exhilaration remained, setting the stage for the ultimate resolution of the story. Emma stepped inside, her eyes scanning every inch of me with a meticulous intensity that made my heart race. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, charged with a mix of authority and anticipation. I stood frozen for a moment, heels clicking faintly as I shifted weight from one foot to another. Every gesture I had perfected during the day, the tilt of my head, the curve of my fingers, the delicate sway of my hips, was under her scrutiny. The suspense was unbearable, but it was also intoxicating. She circled me slowly, eyes glinting with a mixture of amusement and control. "You've been practicing," she said softly, almost as if she already knew the answer. Her voice carried authority, yet there was a playful edge that made my pulse throb. I nodded slightly, lips pressed into a poised smile, keeping my posture flawless. The thrill of performing while completely exposed, knowing Emma was watching every micro-expression, sent shivers down my spine. Emma stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel her presence like a magnetic force. She reached out and gently lifted a strand of my hair, her fingers brushing against my cheek. My heart hammered in my chest. The suspense wasn't just external, it coursed through me, a mix of fear, excitement, and an almost dizzying vulnerability. Every move I made, every breath I took, seemed magnified in the quiet tension of the room. Then came a test I hadn't anticipated. Emma held up a small hand mirror, angled so that I could see my reflection from multiple perspectives at once. "Look at yourself," she whispered. The suspense of the moment, combined with the symbolic act of observing my transformed self, made my stomach twist. I gazed into the mirror, seeing the doll-like perfection of my persona multiplied infinitely. The thrill of transformation collided with the fear of exposure. Was I ready to be fully seen like this? I adjusted my posture subtly, heels shifting as I leaned slightly forward. Every movement was deliberate, choreographed, yet under immense psychological pressure. Emma's eyes never left me, a constant reminder that the stakes had never been higher. The suspense wasn't just about being caught. It was about proving that I could embody the persona flawlessly, under scrutiny, and in full awareness of her control. Suddenly, a subtle creak in the floor made me freeze. My pulse raced. Had someone else entered? Or was it just my imagination, heightened by tension? Emma noticed my slight hesitation, and a knowing smile spread across her lips. "Relax," she murmured, yet the weight of her presence was still suffocating. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady the mix of fear and exhilaration that surged through me. Emma then produced a small box, delicate and ornate, from the side table. Inside was a pair of high-heeled shoes, taller and more elegant than any I had worn before. "These are yours," she said, her voice commanding yet teasing. My heart nearly stopped. The symbolism was clear. The heels represented the ultimate challenge of balance, poise, and transformation. The suspense of wearing them, of maintaining perfection under her watchful eye, was almost too much to bear. I knelt carefully, my hands trembling slightly as I slid the shoes onto my feet. The sensation was both familiar and electrifying. The height, the delicate balance, the subtle shift in posture. Emma watched intently, her gaze assessing every micro-movement. Each step I took in the new heels was a test, a silent negotiation between fear and mastery. The suspense reached a new peak, every nerve in my body alert to the possibility of failure. Then, as I stood fully upright, Emma moved closer and whispered in my ear, "Now show me who you are." The command was simple, but the tension it carried was immense. I took a deep breath, feeling the full weight of the day's trials, the previous knocks, near disasters, observations, and tests, converge into this single moment. The suspense was intoxicating. Every detail of my appearance, posture, and demeanor had to be flawless. I began to walk, slowly at first, each step deliberate, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Emma's eyes never left me, and the apartment seemed to shrink around us, heightening the pressure. The reflection in the mirror captured the full duality of my transformation, delicate, doll-like, yet tense and fully aware of the stakes. The suspense was almost unbearable, a heady mix of fear, excitement, and vulnerability. Hours seemed to pass in this suspended state, each step, each gesture a test of endurance and poise. Emma's presence, the symbolic props, and the endless reflections in the mirrors kept me on edge. I realized that this climax wasn't just about physical transformation. It was about psychological mastery, the ability to perform flawlessly under scrutiny, and the intoxicating thrill of being both exposed and empowered. By the time Emma finally allowed me to pause, my legs ached from the heels, my hands trembled slightly, and my mind buzzed with the intensity of the experience. The suspense had reached its zenith, a combination of psychological pressure, physical strain, and emotional vulnerability that left me both exhausted and exhilarated. I had survived, yet I knew the ultimate moment of truth, the final revelation, judgment, or symbolic act, was still to come. The room was thick with tension, a charged silence that seemed to stretch every second into eternity. Emma stood close, her presence a magnetic force that made every movement of mine deliberate, every gesture meaningful. The heels I wore had become more than shoes. They were symbols of control, transformation, and the ultimate test of my composure. My reflection in the mirrors multiplied infinitely, showing me from every angle, reminding me how exposed, yet perfected, I was. Emma circled me slowly, her eyes assessing, approving, and teasing all at once. "You've come so far," she whispered, a smile playing on her lips. I could feel my pulse hammering, my hands trembling slightly, yet I maintained the doll-like poise Emma had demanded. Every step I took, every tilt of my head, was performed with precision, a delicate dance between fear and exhilaration. The suspense was at its peak. This was the moment when everything could unravel or solidify. She handed me a delicate lipstick, the final prop in her carefully orchestrated trial. "Finish the transformation," she said softly. My hands shook slightly as I held it, feeling the weight of the symbolic act. Applying the lipstick wasn't just about appearance, it was about completing the persona, fully embracing the doll she had meticulously crafted for me. The suspense of the moment was almost unbearable, every second stretching with anticipation. I leaned toward the mirror, carefully applying the lipstick. My reflection stared back, flawless yet tense, capturing the full duality of my transformation. Emma watched intently, her eyes glittering with a mix of pride and mischief. Each swipe of color intensified the thrill, the fear, and the vulnerability. I was fully exposed, fully transformed, and yet completely under her control. The suspense was intoxicating, a heady mix of fear, exhilaration, and psychological surrender. Then, Emma stepped closer, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You are perfect," she whispered, and the words sent a shiver down my spine. Yet even as the praise washed over me, the suspense lingered. Would I be able to maintain this perfection? Could I withstand the scrutiny, the psychological weight, and the constant threat of imperfection? Every muscle in my body was taut with tension, every nerve alert to the possibility of failure. Suddenly, the apartment door creaked. My heart leapt. Emma's eyes flicked toward the sound, and I froze, heels clicking softly as I balanced on the balls of my feet. The suspense was suffocating. Each second stretched into infinity. Would someone else enter? Would my secret finally be exposed? The tension was almost unbearable, yet it was also exhilarating, a culmination of hours of transformation, training, and psychological pressure. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Emma's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, a reminder that I was not alone in this trial, yet fully exposed nonetheless. The mirrors reflected every angle, every gesture, every heartbeat. I realized that the climax was not just about physical transformation, it was about emotional endurance, psychological mastery, and the intoxicating thrill of being completely seen while performing flawlessly. Then came the symbolic moment that would define this stage of the climax. Emma gently tilted my chin upward, forcing me to meet my reflection head-on. "See yourself," she commanded softly. I gazed into the mirror, fully transformed, every detail perfected. The makeup, the posture, the heels, the delicate expression. The suspense of self-recognition, of seeing the doll persona fully realized, was almost overwhelming. I felt a heady mix of pride, fear, and exhilaration. Emma's voice broke the tension. "You've done it. You are my creation, my perfect doll." The words were intoxicating, yet the suspense didn't fade. I was fully exposed, fully transformed, yet the psychological pressure remained, a constant reminder that perfection was fragile, balance was delicate, and any misstep could unravel the persona I had worked so hard to embody. As the climax reached its peak, a sudden thought struck me. What if Emma decided to share this transformation with the world? What if the carefully guarded secret I had maintained, the delicate persona I had perfected, was suddenly exposed? The suspense twisted in my chest, a reminder that even in triumph, danger and tension lingered. Every reflection, every glance, every whispered word was a test of endurance, poise, and composure. Finally, Emma stepped back, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Rest now," she whispered, but the suspense lingered. The ultimate challenge had been met, yet the resolution was incomplete. The tension between exposure and perfection, fear and exhilaration, control and surrender, remained unresolved. I was both victorious and vulnerable, empowered and fragile, fully transformed, yet fully under her influence. I sank into the nearest chair, heels clicking softly as I settled, trembling slightly from the emotional and physical exertion. The mirrors reflected my delicate form, every angle perfect, yet charged with tension. The climax had reached its highest point, every test of composure, every symbolic prop, and every psychological trial fulfilled, but the story was far from over. The suspense lingered, unresolved, leaving me on the edge of anticipation, fear, and exhilaration. The apartment had grown still, almost reverent, after the intensity of the final climax. Every reflection in the mirrors showed me the doll-like perfection I had achieved under Emma's guidance, each detail flawless, yet each step of the journey etched into my nervous energy. I sat on the edge of the sofa, heels resting lightly on the floor, my hands trembling ever so slightly. Emma moved silently around me, a presence both comforting and commanding, a reminder of the control she wielded over this delicate transformation. "Look at yourself," she whispered, gesturing toward the full-length mirror. I obeyed, my eyes drinking in the reflection of the persona I had become. The lipstick gleamed perfectly, hair arranged with delicate precision, posture immaculate. The suspense of self-recognition, seeing the person I had been and the doll I had become simultaneously, made my chest tighten with a mix of fear, exhilaration, and disbelief. Could this truly be me? Could I ever step out of this persona and return to my former self? Emma's fingers brushed against my shoulder, light but deliberate. "You've done so well," she murmured, voice soft yet imbued with authority. Yet the tension remained. It wasn't just about praise, it was about anticipation. I knew the story wasn't over. Every moment had been a trial, a test, a push toward the edge, and now the edge felt both terrifying and intoxicating. Then, without warning, the sound of the doorbell shattered the fragile calm. My heart leapt into my throat. I froze, heels balanced precariously on the floor. Emma's eyes sparkled with mischief as she raised a single eyebrow. "Do you hear that?" she asked. The suspense twisted inside me, a visceral pull between fear and excitement. Who could it be? How much of my transformation would be revealed? I glanced at the door, hesitant to move, unsure whether to answer or remain frozen in the doll-like perfection Emma had instilled. Each heartbeat echoed loudly, a reminder of the stakes, of the fragility of this perfectly curated persona. Emma's presence beside me was both a safety net and a reminder that I was fully exposed, fully vulnerable, and completely subject to her control. Slowly, almost unwillingly, I approached the door, heels clicking softly against the floor. Each step was measured, deliberate, the suspense of discovery hanging thick in the air. Peering through the peephole, I saw a familiar face, someone unexpected, someone whose presence could shatter the delicate balance of my secret. My mind raced. Could I maintain composure? Could I survive another test without faltering? Emma's whisper sliced through my thoughts. "Remember, every movement counts." The weight of her words pressed down on me. I adjusted my posture, lifted my chin, and opened the door, revealing the visitor. Their eyes widened instantly, taking in the full doll-like transformation, the immaculate makeup, the delicate posture, the heels that had become both challenge and symbol. My pulse raced, adrenaline surging. "Wow," the visitor breathed, a mixture of surprise and awe in their voice. The suspense tightened around me like a vice. How would they react? Were they accepting, judgmental, curious? Every possibility played out in my mind, each one more intense than the last. I felt the full spectrum of fear and exhilaration at once. Emma's gaze met mine, a silent signal that the real challenge had just begun. The suspense wasn't over. It had merely shifted. No longer was it about internal mastery or subtle gestures. It was about interaction, exposure, and the unpredictable responses of the outside world. My body tensed, but the doll-like poise remained, a testament to hours of psychological and physical training. Then came a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. The visitor stepped closer, extending a hand in admiration, or perhaps curiosity. My mind raced. Could I maintain the delicate balance of perfection while engaging with the unknown? Every fiber of my being screamed with anticipation and fear, yet I forced myself to remain composed. Each blink, each gesture, each carefully measured word was a test of endurance, a delicate dance on the knife's edge between exposure and mastery. Emma's voice, soft and teasing, reminded me of my place. "Show them who you are," she whispered. And so I did, stepping forward with careful grace, voice poised, movements flawless. The suspense was electric, thick enough to feel with every heartbeat, every breath. My transformation was no longer private. It had become a performance, a challenge to maintain poise, perfection, and secrecy all at once. And just as the visitor's eyes widened in wonder, the sound of another knock, louder, more urgent, shattered the moment. My heart leapt again. Emma's smile deepened, mischievous and enigmatic. The suspense was unbearable. Would this next person see everything? Would my carefully maintained persona crumble under scrutiny? Every second stretched infinitely as I balanced on the edge, caught between triumph and potential disaster. I froze, heels clicking softly as I glanced at Emma. She nodded ever so slightly, a silent affirmation that the next challenge had begun. The mirrors reflected my two selves, the person I had been, the doll I had become, each angle capturing the tension, vulnerability, and exhilaration of the moment. I was ready, yet terrified. Every instinct screamed caution, yet every fiber of my being thrilled at the suspense of the unknown. The camera, if one had been present, would have captured the perfect climax, the fully transformed doll poised for judgment, the unknown visitor at the threshold, the subtle power of Emma hovering in the background. Every element of suspense, fear, and exhilaration had converged into a single, electrifying moment. And yet, the story was not finished. The resolution remained just out of reach, leaving the audience suspended in anticipation, craving the next chapter. I took a careful step forward, heart pounding, eyes locked on the visitor, waiting for the next move. And then, the screen fades to black.